All right, let's get our reporters now. Silindelo Masikane is in Pretoria for us. So is Pule Letshwiti-Jones. They've been tracking various stories for us, and they join us now live to give us updates. Slee, let's start with you in Pretoria, where the International Pentecostal Holiness Church trial has been postponed. This after the presiding judge told the court she received death threats. Tell us more.
Yeah.
Certainly so. Brief proceedings here in the North Gauteng High Court, where we were expecting a judgment on an appeal application by two of the Modise brothers who essentially raised a concern around a technicality. The judge who is meant to preside over the trial, which was actually meant to start 2 weeks ago around the 13th of February, she was also the case manager of the matter, and in essence the parties involved were supposed to sign off or consent that they all agree that the judge who was the case manager would also then preside over the trial. That wasn't done, and so the lawyers representing Frederick as well as Tshepiso Modise then lodged applications essentially to have the judge recuse herself. The initial applications were dismissed. An appeal was then lodged, arguments were heard, and today what we're expecting was a judgment with regards to that appeal application. However, as soon as the judge walked in, you could tell that there was certainly a difference in terms of how this case is going to proceed moving forward. In essence, it does seem as though the life of Judge Portia Patlane is at risk, and she walked into the courtroom with at least 4 bodyguards surrounding her. She then proceeded to tell counsel that unfortunately she could not deliver judgment, and that is because investigations are underway in terms of these threats that she has been receiving. Let's take a listen.
I've received threats, I've been receiving phone calls, and there are investigations going on. So the threats were very specific, and for that reason I've also been informed and advised that there is progress. So there's a possibility that we might be finalizing this matter by next week. When I say finalizing, I'm talking about the proceedings that we were dealing with previously, that they may be finalized next week. And I have received promise that it should be before the end of next week. So for that reason, I have to just allow the investigations to go on. And they have been escalated to be done speedily. So, as I said, there's progress. And as a result, we cannot proceed.
We have been joined by Manqoba Mchunu in the Free State for us as well. But let's stay in Pretoria for now. Pule Letshwiti-Jones is in the capital, where the multi-party coalition has handpicked the DA's Silas Brink as a mayoral candidate. It follows the resignation, of course, of Randall Williams last week. Pule, what more do we know from that press briefing that took place earlier today?
Yeah, well, Maseko, it's still unclear when the special council meeting will be convened, which will see the election of the new Tshwane mayor. What we understand is that the speaker was supposed to have this council on Friday. However, it still seems uncertain as to whether this council briefing will be on Friday, on Tuesday. As we now understand, the speaker has cited issues to say he has commitments as well this Friday. However, we did see, of course, the multi-party coalition formation today saying that they're throwing their weight behind Silas Brink, who, by the way, has worked as an MC in the city of Tshwane as well. We understand that there were 5 candidates who were vying for the job, including the former Speaker of Tshwane before, Katlaga Matebe, and of course MMC for Finance, former MMC for Finance, Peter Sutton, and of course Jackie Ace as well, who were amongst those who were actually wanting to be, the preferred candidate for the Tshwane coalition formation. But the multi-party group has now, of course, said that they will be supporting Silas Brink. And what we now wait for is to see when this council meeting will actually be convened, because there's still quite a lot that has to be accomplished before the end of February, including the adjustment budget, which will of course speaks to the acceleration of service delivery in the city of Tshwane. But let's take a listen to what Mr. Brink had to say today when we were part of that presser in the city of Tshwane.
The sacrifices that need to be made, I feel strongly, and this is obviously a point of discussion, that they don't compromise the core functions of local government. Electricity, water, sewage, roads, well-lit streets, well-maintained streets, those key issues. There are many business units in the city which unfortunately have nothing to do with the purpose of local government. For example, Wonderboom Airport, no reason, in my mind, why a municipality should have an airport. If you look at the expenditure losses that the Wonderboom Airport incurs, and you take that over a number of years, it's clear that that is a liability, it's not an asset.
And Manqoba, you are in Denaysville in the Free State following those floods over the weekend where hundreds of homes were swept away. 2 people are said to still be missing, for instance, in the Eastern Cape as well. You were taking us through a particular area where you even had to use a canoe to get around.
Well, certainly, Masiko, and that tells you just how severe the situation is here in Denaysville. We're seeing some of the houses here, Masiko, that are still submerged in water. I'm just going to ask my colleague Mohammed Tadiwaliteng just to show you the situation around here. This is one of the resorts here in the area that has been affected by the flooding. It's just a few kilometers away from the Vaal River itself, and in fact, from where we are, you can still hear the rumbling of the water that's gushing out of the Vaal River. That has opened 12 of those sluice gates to try and relieve the pressure. We understand, Masiko, that the dam had been filling up. In fact, it had been overcapacitated with 120% of water being recorded there. So those sluice gates, the department saying that they remain open. But of course, for these communities that are living downstream, it is a catastrophe in terms of the flooding. We are seeing quite a lot of damage here on the ground. We're seeing some of the houses still submerged in water, and some of the businesses that have been hard hit, that have been affected. And in fact, they are telling us, Masiko, that one of the ways that they are now trying to get into their businesses to salvage some of their belongings is to use those canoes as a way of transportation, because of the high water levels here in this area. So it does remain quite dire, and many, of course, here are still evacuated. In fact, earlier on we saw some of the families here still evacuating this place. The reason for this is because they are saying that the flood waters have not gone down yet in this area because of the proximity of the place to the Vaal Dam. In fact, they are saying that it seems as if the water continues to rise in this area. In fact, that's the reason why they say that they have now decided just to try and get whatever they can and just to evacuate from this. So the situation remaining like this, but of course the department saying that it has no other alternative but to open the gates open, Masiko, to try and relieve the pressure. But earlier on, I spoke to one of the businessmen here who explained how difficult they have been affected by this flood.
Well, it's gone into real disaster situation. In 21 years, never had the water level as high as what it is now. Can't understand why there's only 12 sluice gates open. In November, we were in a similar situation. The water level was 115%. They had 18 sluice gates open. The question is, when we went from 10 sluice gates to 12 sluice gates, it took them over 3 hours longer than what they said it would take to open the extra 2 sluice gates. But it is what it is, and we're just trying to save what we can.
All right, that was your All Angles Lunchtime update on eNCA with reporters Silindelo Masikane, Pule, Letshwiti-Jones and Manqoba. Thank you very much, team.